Okay, quick check. Have you ever come back to your own project after a couple weeks away, opened up Xcode, and thought, wait, did I wrote this? Yeah, same. That's the solo dev life in a nutshell. Half building, half detective work, half making deals with yourself to actually finish things. And right about then, Claude Code quietly snuck into my workflow, not as some magic AI overlord, but as the tool I keep reaching for in those weird, unpredictable indie dev moments, midnight debugging, last minute refactors, even just untangling my own spaghetti notes from last sprint. If you've ever stared at your code base and wished you could just phone a friend, except you're the only one on the team, this one's for you. Today, I'm not pitching, not demoing. I'm walking through how Claude actually fits into the survival kit of real solo iOS development, the good, the janky, and the surprisingly fun. So if you want to see unfiltered indie workflow, not just the highlight reel, stick around. I promise you'll either walk away with a new trick or at least feel way less alone next time you're debugging at 2 a.m. Real quick, and I'm Daniel. I've been in the iOS game for almost 8 years, freelancing and shipping apps for other people. But since Dub 25, I've gone full solo dev, started building in public, and yeah, kind of figuring out this personal brand thing as I go. More on that for another video. All right, let's start with the part every solo dev secretly dreads. Coming back to your own code base after a break. I swear the worst. Who wrote this? Moment isn't when you join someone else's team. It's when you open up your own project and realize you don't remember a thing. And yeah, it's always you. You just have no memory of why that function is named sync old key to, or what bizarre edge case you were fixing at midnight 3 months ago. This is honestly where Claude Code started earning its spot in my so-called survival kit. I'll kick off a session like I'm talking to a slightly too polite junior dev. Can you walk me through how the onboarding flow works in this project? What should I even look at first? It's not magic. Claude doesn't just know your code base, but it'll search, it'll dig, it'll summarize. Sometimes it'll lay out the history. Here's what changed in the last month. Here's why this view is 10 files deep. Here's what past you apparently thought was a good idea. And suddenly you're not sitting there in silence, hoping you'll remember how everything fits together. Now you've got a kind of conversation partner. You can ask, what files matter for onboarding? Any weird dependencies I should watch out for? Why did the theme color logic move from app delegate to like 3 different structs? Claude will even check your Git history and tell you the story behind a function or map out where your features actually live. What really changed my workflow was getting serious about Claude.md. It's not some documentation you write for other people. It's your, here's how things work around here. Note to yourself and your AI sidekick. Every time I run into a weird setup or some Swift lint quirk, I just drop it in there. Now, whenever I bounce between projects, Claude just picks up those breadcrumbs and gets me up to speed faster than I ever could alone. Honestly, I used to think this was overkill for a solo project, but every time I come back after a break or need to untangle some mess I left myself, having this doc and this workflow is the only reason I don't spiral. It's like Slack for past and future me, except I actually answer my own questions. So if you're still trying to hold your whole app in your head, don't. Let Claude be your brain's backup. You'll thank yourself the next time you forget how anything works. So here's where things get interesting, the design phase. Honestly, I used to be that person who'd get an idea and just dive straight into code. No planning, no sanity checks, just pure cowboy coding. It's fun until you break half your app and realize you've made a mess you're going to spend your whole Saturday fixing. But here's what shifted for me with Claude. Now, before I write a single new feature or start fixing a bug, I actually slow down and have a little back and forth with it. Like, I'll say, Can you read through session editor view.swift and just explain how it handles drag and drop? Don't do anything yet. Just talk me through the structure. And Claude will, in plain language. Sometimes it points out things I totally forgot were even in there. Sometimes it asks me clarifying questions. That little pause is magic. Instead of just dumping code and hoping for the best, I ask Claude for a plan. What are a few different ways to add this pro feature without breaking my free tier? Or if I change this, what else is going to break? It almost feels like having a technical lead looking over your shoulder, pushing you to sketch out the moves before you jump in. Once we've got a plan that actually makes sense, I'll usually get Claude to write some tests, like real failing tests, before it ever writes the new code. Write some unit tests for QR code manager.swift, especially for empty inputs and network errors. No mocks, no shortcuts. And then after those tests are in, I let Claude or myself write the code that makes them pass. I used to think this was way too much process for one person, but the reality, it actually keeps me moving faster in the long run because I'm not stuck in those endless fix and break loops. And for design work, this is where Claude gets weirdly helpful. I'll just drop in a Figma export, a screenshot, or even a rough sketch and say, all right, roast my layout. What's broken here? Any accessibility fails? Am I missing anything Apple would catch in review? It'll come back with feedback on spacing, color enums, even little details like, hey, your touch targets are too small for iPad. It's like having a second set of eyes that isn't just trying to rush to the next ticket. If you want a cheat code for UI, keep your little style guide handy, even if it's just a few notes about where you want your edit buttons or your color preferences, and paste it into the session. Claude will totally call you out if you forget your own design rules. I can't say this process always feels natural, especially if you're used to just hacking away until something compiles, but it's made my app stronger, and honestly, it just feels less lonely than trying to plan and debug every detail in my own head. That's how I use Claude in the design phase, not for the code, but for the conversation that helps you build the right thing before you even start. All right, let's talk about the build phase, the part where you're actually writing code. And if you're anything like me, trying not to break the entire app with every commit. When I first started using Claude Code, I really thought, okay, maybe this thing will just crank out code for me. But the more I worked, the more I realized it's not really about having the AI write everything. It's about not coding in a vacuum. Most days I use Claude as a sounding board. If I'm refactoring a big SwiftUI view, I'll just paste in the whole file and ask, hey, do you see anything off with my state management? Anything that could bite me later? Sometimes it catches stuff I completely missed, or it just asks those annoying, important questions like, are you sure this needs to be a class? It's always struck, let's be honest. When I'm about to take on something big, like a scary migration or a change that touches half the app, I'll get Claude to help me lay out a checklist first. We actually slow down, plan out the steps, and only then do I go one by one, fixing, testing, and getting a little sanity check at every stage. It's like having someone tap you on the shoulder and remind you not to just YOLO the whole project. And honestly, for me, one of the biggest wins is just letting Claude handle the boring Git stuff. It writes commit messages that don't sound like I just mashed the keyboard, helps summarize what actually changed, and even reviews my pull requests for style and accessibility. Stuff I usually forget when I'm tired and just want to ship it. Sometimes, if things get wild and I'm working on a bunch of features at once, I'll even run a couple Claude sessions in parallel. One focused on writing, one on reviewing, maybe one just running tests. It sounds like overkill, but on a big app, it's a lifesaver for keeping my brain from melting. So yeah, in the build phase, Claude isn't just a code generator. It's my backup brain. It keeps me honest, keeps things moving, and honestly, Just makes solo dev feel a little less like I'm talking to myself the whole time. All right, let's talk about that point in the process nobody really likes. Actually shipping your app. For me, the deploy phase is always this weird mix of dread, adrenaline, and a little panic. Did I forget something obvious? Is that Fastlane script about to wipe out my test flight testers? Did I just commit something dumb to main at 1 a.m.? It's never just click and done. There's always this voice in the back of my head going, "You sure you triple checked everything?" That's where Claude started feeling less like a coding tool and more like an actual safety net, especially when you lean into automation. I'll be honest, on those nights when I'm ready to push to test flight, I script Claude to just sweep the last 10 commits. It'll flag anything risky, double check that I didn't accidentally rename my widget again, and yeah, it'll let me know if there's a credential hiding somewhere I forgot to clear out. What I love is that you don't need a chat window open for this. Claude can run in the background, just pure CLI, no frills. I've got it wired into my CI sometimes, so if I open a PR or label a new issue, Claude jumps in, leaving review comments, running batch scripts for coverage or style checks. It's almost like having a junior dev who lives in the cloud, just waiting to help keep you from nuking your production build. But probably my favorite thing, letting Claude double check my deploy scripts. Sometimes when I'm tired, I'll just say, "Look, I need you to audit this Fastlane file. Tell me if anything's about to go off the rails." Claude will flag the dangerous lines, remind me about the right environment variables, and keep me from making those I knew better mistakes. If I'm feeling brave, I'll even let it run scripts inside a dev container, my little safe YOLO mode, where if things go sideways, it's no big deal. Everything's logged, nothing's truly lost. Honestly, if you're shipping solo, having this kind of backup is real peace of mind. You're not automating everything, you're just giving yourself the basics, the safety checks, the reminders you wish you had at midnight when the ship it button is just too tempting. And if you're smart about it, you'll keep a permissions log in your Claudie MD, what's safe to run, what's off limits, and why. I can't tell you how many times that one trick saved me from accidentally letting a script do more than it should. Shipping solo isn't about doing it all yourself. It's about giving yourself every little advantage. So ship day isn't just stress and guesswork. And for me, Claude's made that part of the workflow actually kind of calm. All right, last phase, support, scale, and all the behind the scenes stuff you only really appreciate once things start breaking or growing. This is the part of solo indie dev nobody puts on a t-shirt, but honestly, it's where most of my stress gets saved. Support for me is basically about not losing my mind when something blows up 6 months after I shipped it. It's the classic scenario. You get a weird crash report or a user pings you about something breaking on a version you haven't thought about in ages. Here's where I've leaned on Claude hard. I'll just paste in the stack trace, the Firebase error, or even a totally cryptic log file, and just talk to it like a partner. Hey, any idea what's going on here? Walk me through what you'd check first. Claude's not judging, it's not tired. It'll read through the mess, explain things in plain language, and sometimes spot patterns I definitely would have missed on my own. And when it comes to migration, like say moving to a new Swift version, refactoring a gigantic view into something modular, or even just prepping for that annual iOS update panic, Claude becomes my planning board. I'll ask it for a step-by-step plan, or just to help me think through what could break if I pull on a certain thread. Sometimes I'll even use it in headless mode, batching up code fixes or running checks across the whole project so I'm not stuck doing tedious, repetitive stuff by hand. The real long-term win, though? Claude's kind of become my secret weapon for keeping tech debt under control. If I'm not sure about a series of commits or worried I left something sketchy in a PR, I'll have it do a little audit. Hey, do you see any risky changes here? Did I accidentally leave in a print statement or, God forbid, a credential? It's way less embarrassing to have AI flag it than getting roasted in an app store review. And you know what I really love? If a session ever gets noisy or bloated with logs and half-baked conversations, I just wipe the context clean and keep only what matters. It's like clearing your mental desk. Sometimes I even treat Claude like a little daily stand-up. I'll start the morning with a summary. What did I do yesterday? What's next if I actually want to ship this widget by Friday? And boom, it spits back a plan. All the little rituals, the check-ins, the sanity checks. That's what makes support and scale not just survivable, but actually kind of sustainable as a solo dev. Claude's not magic, but it's a whole lot better than going back through your own old code at 2 a.m. and hoping for the best. And for me, that's everything. And before I wrap this up, let me just riff for a second about all the little hacks and habits that make using Claude actually fun as a solo dev. These are the things you kind of discover by accident. Like one day you realize you can open 3 Claude windows at once, each focused on something different. And suddenly it feels like you've simulated a whole tiny team in your apartment. I'll have one session writing code, one reviewing, another just hammering away at test scripts or batch refactors in the background. Honestly, it gets a little chaotic, but for bigger apps, total game changer. It's like your own Slack channels, except you're the only one ever online. Custom prompts are another sneaky trick. Over time, I've built up a mini library, just little slash commands for stuff I'm always forgetting to do, like fix accessibility or add localization. I drop them in my commands folder, and whenever I hit a repetitive indie chore, I just fire one off instead of typing the same prompt for the 100th time. You can actually feel the this is saving me brain power moment every time you do it. Some days, when my brain is fried, I'll flip Claude into pure rubber duck mode. Like, hey, can you just review my week? Spot anything I keep doing wrong? Or I'll ask it to spit out a mini retro. What actually worked? What totally flopped? Patterns I didn't notice. Half the time it's eerily insightful. The other half it's just funny, but either way I get a new perspective. If I've learned anything, it's that Claude gets better the more specific you are. If I say write tests for Auth Manager Swift, focus on login failures, no mocks, I get better stuff faster, and I spend way less time going back and forth. It's not really prompt engineering. It's just learning how to ask for what you actually need, which honestly is a whole dev skill in itself. And the last thing I'll say is treat every session like a real conversation. Claude's not a wish-granting genie. Sometimes you have to steer it, sometimes you have to call time out, and sometimes you'll realize you can just double tap escape to undo something wild before it spirals. Always sanity check before you merge anything. But if you treat it more like a chill teammate and less like a vending machine, you'll find it fits right into all the weird little rituals that make indie dev life sustainable. So yeah, Claude Code isn't just a fancy way to autocomplete Swift. For me, it's become a quiet teammate that shows up across the entire app cycle. Not every day, not always perfectly, but enough that I feel less alone when I'm deep in the build. If this was useful, feel free to like or share, or drop your own Claude tips in the comments. I read them all. Until next time, keep building, keep shipping, and don't forget to use the tools that make solo dev feel a little less solo. Peace.